Is it working? It's always a miracle because, like, you're sitting here by yourself and you have no idea. What a treat to have Charlie here. There are two books you're going to hear about today that you haven't read yet. Maybe you have, maybe you're that lucky, that are going to make a big impact on you. And I got to say, in terms of track record, 2 for 2, what a mensch, what a good guy. Ladies and gentlemen, Charlie Gilkey, how are you, sir?
Seth, thanks so much for having me on. Thanks for the introduction. I am doing great today, and I'm excited to jam with you today.
Fantastic. So we're inviting people to post their questions. The two books are Team Habits and Start Finishing. One you can get today, one you have to patiently wait for. So we will start with the one they can get today. Tell us about Start Finishing, which is so good.
Thank you for that. So, Start Finishing addresses the questions that we often don't ask when it comes to doing meaningful work and getting work done. Like most of the challenges that we see in what we would call the productivity energy is like, how do you do the stuff you don't want to do? That's not very interesting. You don't want to do it. That's why you're not doing it. We unpack that, right? What Start Finishing attempts to grapple with is, why don't we do the things that matter most to us? Why don't we do the things that are significant, that are soul enriching, that are world changing? Now, that's an interesting problem because ostensibly we want to do them, but we don't. Why?
Correct.
Right. And so Start Finishing really helps unpack why it is that we don't get to the stuff that matters most to us. And, Steph, it took me a long time. I think it was like until 2019 to where I realized for a blog that's ostensibly about productivity, right? It's in the name, Productive Flourishing. I didn't have a single post on procrastination, right? And so I was like, what am I missing here? And it's like, well, most of what people, I was talking to a client about this yesterday, or not yesterday, a few days ago. I think procrastination is a misdiagnosis most of the time.
All right, tell us.
Right. Because think about it. So, Seth, what's your favorite dessert?
Right this minute, it's ginger tahini almond cookies.
Okay. So, do you need a task management system or accountability buddies or a productivity system to eat that?
In fact, when I run out, it's the highest priority to make a new batch. Just
Right.
saying.
And so we don't procrastinate on the things we really love. We don't procrastinate on those types of things. And so really when we look at procrastination, we have a lack of associate or alignment with the meaning of it. We have a lack of willingness to prioritize ourselves and our needs. We have a lack of an ability to break out of this sort of the industrial capitalist mode that's like, if it's not producing some market value, it's not worth doing. And lastly, we have a lot of fears that we don't address. And the fear that we don't address often is not what happens if I fail, but what happens if I
Exactly.
succeed? What happens then? And so when you really grapple with that question, you'll start to see why we don't do the work that matters. Because if you really do the work that matters, your life is going to change. And we
And that's a
fear that,
scary.
right? And that's the scary thing. So
Yeah.
that's
So
what Start Finishing is about.
I have a philosophical thesis. I studied philosophy uh, in college, and there were only certain parts of it I was good at. Most of it I wasn't. But part of my thesis is built around the expression "I was talking to myself," which is who is I and who is myself.
Mm-hmm.
We actually have two people inside us most of the time, and I think one of them is the better angel of our nature, the one that has the long-term perspective, the one that can be fearless when it's time to be generous. And then we have the other one, the one that talks small, the resistance, etc. So procrastination is what happens when the two of them aren't in alignment. And I think part of the brilliance of your book is all the way right to the title of helping us find a way through and be able to understand that. So Khalil put it this way,
Yeah.
which I think is great. Okay, so let me make that go away and go back to here. Next book. Can you give us a preview? Is that allowed?
I can give you a preview. It's allowed. It comes out August 29th. And so what Team Habits does is it's very similar to your upcoming book, The Song of Significance. We take different chapters.
As somebody who loves your book, I would say that they rhyme with each other, but it is not very similar. It is its own special magic.
I appreciate that. What I do in Team Habits is show that if you really want to improve the performance and belonging of your team, While it's important that we have the right words and vision and things like that, it comes down to the micro habits and the ways that we work and how we work together as a team. And there's a fundamental difference in kind between our individual sort of personal habits and the habits we do as a collective. So, Seth, you might have a personal scheduling habit that works for you, and I might have a personal schedule. We have individual scheduling habits. But when we come together and say, "Hey, how about we coordinate this? How about we
Mm-hmm.
do this in a way that works for both of us and works for the team?" We create a team habit. And so much of the parts of work we don't like are not people related. They're not about the people. They're about these bad team habits we have that we implicitly agree to along the way that we never stop and say, "Hey, why are we doing this?" I call it the broken printer, right? So every organization I've worked at or consulted with has a broken printer, at least one that everybody knows about, right? It's just whatever it's doing. It's sitting in the office room or prints badly or expensive or you can't use it or it's got a stupid office code. We all know about it, but no one fixes it, which is a fascinating thing to me because at most it's a $500 decision. We can't fix the printer, but we can call a $3,000 meeting to talk about nothing.
Yeah.
Why is it that that goes? Well, we've developed a habit of accepting what's normal. What's normal is just that there's just stuff that's broken. No one owns it and we can't do anything about it. But what happens when we say, no, 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 no? We have to show up to work. We get to show up together for an indefinite amount of time. If we're already going to be showing up to work, why not make it better? And by better, these habits, whether we set meeting agendas before we have them, or whether we leave 5 minutes at the end to capture next actions. I'll talk about meetings because meetings are the easy whipping boy, right?
Oh, they
Um,
are.
they are for so many different, because all the other what I call categories of team habits around goal setting, decision making, communicating, communication, collaboration, belonging, all show up in meetings, right? And so most of our bad habits show up in a meeting, which is why we hate them. But if you've
Yeah.
been on a great team, you've had great meetings. You've had meetings that you want to go to because you get to celebrate, you get to contribute, you get to see, you get to shine. Those are the meetings where we say, you know what, it's Monday morning. Because of different events, we have to show up on a Monday morning meeting, which is not a great thing, but we're willing to do it because these wonderful humans that we work with day in, day out are
Yeah.
going to be there and we're going to be making work better and we're going to be making life better, all by changing our habits. So that's what Team Habits is about.
That's a beautiful summary. I will give you a couple printer examples because we love to share them. So I did a StreamYard just the other day. I wasn't the host, and it was set like this.
Mhm.
And I said to the tech person, you know, there's a button right next to that button. And when people are watching on a laptop, this looks a lot better than that.
Yeah.
And the person couldn't find the button. And we talked for and said, oh, this? And they said, yeah, it does look better. Okay, we're going to do this. And I said, why? And they said, well, I think it's a good idea, but I have to bring it up with the committee. And maybe going forward, we'll be able to do that for future calls. That this person didn't have enough agency to do this. And
yeah. The
it's
committee.
heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Right?
The committee.
And when we think about the habits, often they're because a boss is trying to extinguish the weird edge case that they're afraid of, as opposed to encourage the 100 good things that could happen. The second example I'll give you, sometimes I show up as a volunteer to be in a room to coach people or talk with them. I don't have any clients or coaching clients. And it was a bunch of teenagers, and they had adopted the habit of begrudgingly showing up at these things and, like, you know, the arms folded and stuff. And I walked in and I sat down and I said, how is everyone? I was like, woo. I said, here's the deal. I'm a volunteer. We have lots of ways we can spend the next half hour. If you want to spend the next half hour being here with me, I'm in. If not, you can go. It's a voluntary meeting. And everyone said, okay. And this one woman was like this the whole time. And after like 2 minutes, I said, you should go now. And I asked her to leave the room. And it turned out for the next 2 weeks, she was a force transformed, because she had been waiting for someone to call her on her bullshit. And no one ever did, because the habit was, we don't call people on this.
Yeah, the habit is we can't have conversations about how we're showing up. A
Yep.
butt in a seat is just as good as a heart on fire. Okay,
Right.
it's a butt in the seat.
Exactly.
So there we go. Like, no, we can, like, let's uninvite people from things they don't want to be in and
Yeah.
ask them to leave. Like, you don't want to be here. Great.
Right. Up
Right.
to you.
Up to
All
you.
right. So Susanna has a question. We're going to take your questions for about a few more minutes, and then we're going to get back to work. So Susanna's question.
So, how do you incentivize and develop team habits to drive positive actions with a mindset? If not now, then when? If not me, then who? So, there's multiple things that we want to tie to, I think, with this one: ownership and the inherent drives of the people you're trying to lead. Right? Again, I don't have to convince Seth to eat the cookies that he loves right now. Like, it's not a whole thing. I don't need a committee. I don't need a decision tree. It's like, here, go after it. Right. And so when I'm working with teams, when I suggest is like, I think you're trying to compel people to do things that you want them to do. Right. Turns out you don't have to compel people to do things they want to do. You have to figure out what they want to do and align that with your organization's or team's goals. And if you do that, turns out you don't need a lot of that, like, accountability. You don't need the management. You don't need all of that. It's like, hey, how can I remove the friction? I ask this question a lot with my executive coaching clients. What are you doing to remove the friction that's keeping people from doing what they automatically want to do? And the second is, what, if you want to ask a powerful question, what about this particular thing is not in alignment with you? And leave it as a neutral question, right? And listen deeply. And when you figure out that misalignment, again, it becomes their dessert, their favorite dessert. Like, oh, I get to do that. That's what I've been wanting to do the whole time. Okay, go do it.
Beautiful.
Let me know how it went. Right. Here's what I expect. Now, as leaders, sometimes we have to give parameters and constraints to things like, hey, go do that. But you've got about 3 months and this much budget. Like, this can't be the magical mystery tour that lasts a year and you get an infinite budget on this one, right? But go away for a week or two, spend this much money, make sure you sort of think about this. Let me know how it went.
Yeah. So I got two things I want to add, and then if another question comes in, we'll go for it. The first one is, I have found the following question to be really powerful. What did it cost you to be here? What did you have to give up to do this thing, to be at work today in this line of work? Because it's not free. At some level, our work is voluntary. You have to work somewhere, but you don't have to work here.
Mm-hmm.
What's it costing you emotionally, financially, whatever? And then how can we go about together to make it worth it? And the second one is related to both of our books, which is, if everyone agrees with everything we're saying, why isn't everything better? And the reason is we're not talking about it. And the magic of a book is you can put it on someone's desk and run away before they notice who did it. And then a conversation can happen. Because if you say, there are 5 good ideas in this book, can you find 3 of them? Let's talk about them. Suddenly, it's not about you have some agenda. It's, here is this thing that we need to talk about. And the same thing happened with the Carbon Almanac. We didn't think the Carbon Almanac was going to change the climate, but we knew we could create millions of conversations, and we have.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the reasons why authors talk about their books is not really because they think they're going to sell a lot, but because it gave them a chance to have a conversation. And so I just wanted to stick that in because you have done a great job about that. Okay, Sella has a question, and then we'll take one more after Sella's. How do you persuade a group within a company to go the extra mile instead of picking the low-hanging fruit?
That's a great one. I'll go back. Alignment. Why does the extra mile matter? Does the extra mile just additional work on someone for something they don't care about? Then you're back into management, and you're basically back into carrot and stick management. Like, we'll give you the right carrot that's extrinsic to this thing that we want you to do, or we'll give you the stick to get you to do this thing, right? So what's significant about that extra mile? What's remarkable about it, to steal Seth's sort of thing? Why is it going to change the world? Who will care if we do it? And I often guess I have the advantage of working with a lot of startups who know their customers, who actually know the people who are going to be beneficiaries. Is how is their life going to be better? Let's make this personal. Make it personal to the team, to the customer. I think you'll see people are willing to show up because we show up and go the extra mile for our friends and people we care about. We don't when it's an impersonal cog, that we're just creating another widget we're creating. I'm not going to do that. And so I'll be more specific here. Even if that extra mile seems to be so divorced from the work of filling out like cell C17 on some random spreadsheet, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, why do I need to do that? Well, if you know that cell C17 is actually what helps get your team paid, right? And you can see that link between that, you might show up for an additional 30 minutes and make sure that number is right and taken care of, because it's not some random number. It's a number that has relevance and meanings, and it will make your team's life better. So again, extra mile, low hanging fruit, all this kind of whatnot. Ask that question. How is this very personally going to make things better for the people you're talking to? Turns out you might not need as much accountability and management as you think. What I want to acknowledge here, though, is this kind of goes to your question, Seth. Like, why aren't things better? And I think we get stuck. Why I wrote Team Habits is we get stuck in the enormity of change. Now, all the different things you can change, and the paradox of choice and things like that. And I just want to remind us all, is like, look, changing any one thing and making it better means better. So because better is better, right? So let's start there. Second off, what I do in Team Habits is try to show there are different categories we might work with. Like we might say, look, our meeting culture is just broken. We don't like it. And the thing about it is, you don't have a meeting culture. You have a meeting collection of habits.
Mm-hmm.
Which of those habits are you going to start changing? And let's not sort of assume that we're going to boil the ocean and do it super quickly. Like, what if we broke the hegemony of the hour-long meeting, right? And just said, we can either go one of two ways, y'all. We can either have more frequent, shorter meetings that really matter, like that really help our attention spans, or we can stop doing the hour-long meeting and getting halfway through it and then needed to schedule another meeting. And we can say, you know what? Let's have a 2-hour meeting so we can actually solve the problem. One of those two approaches might actually make things better. I don't know. You know your team. Your team knows what's up. But just doing that one move and saying, you know what, this next planning meeting, we never get through them. They're always painful. We never get to where we need to do it. An hour is not enough. Let's schedule 2 hours, actually show up and get it done and feel like we got something done together. Might make all the difference. It's going to take you 2 hours one way or the other. How do you do it with coherence and alignment and grace and humanity?
Lovely. I just have to close with a rant. That was lovely. I should just close with that, but I'm not gonna. I hope you'll forgive me, Udi, but I'm going to close with this rant. You are talking a lot about people who are going to leave their position in a few months. Damn straight. Because number one, those people who might even be leaving tomorrow are talking to my other team members, because those people are engaging with our customers, because those people are using the benefit of the doubt that we've worked really hard to earn to either help us move forward or help us move backwards. And because those people are people, and all of us are going to leave one day, but I can help them leave better. And because the kind of people we want to be around, the kind of people we are people who care. And if you don't care, you shouldn't leave in a few months. You should leave right now. And it's my job to create the conditions for caring people to do work that matters with people who also care, to offer each other the dignity they deserve. And the perniciousness of the industrial capitalism mindset that people are a resource, human resources. What a ridiculous expression. We don't need a stopwatch, and we don't need to bully people into being little mini cheap robots. What we need to do is find out where the liminal space is and explore the difference between here and there. And if people want to stay on that journey, that's fantastic. And if they don't, I totally get it. But no one is disposable. It's just people sometimes choose to treat others in a way that they're not proud of.
Seth, I'd love to jump on that one if we have a little bit of time. It's important that we don't continually quietly accept the absurdity. right? The absurdity is just, it doesn't matter. The program printer is what it is. People are just resources. If we just quietly accept the system, what we have actually done, we've learned this through social justice. We've learned this through so many different things. We have provided just a little bit more inertia on that norm. It makes it okay, right? It makes it okay to show up and slouch the whole time because that's just what we can do here. And so what I would say on that one is, even if you can't change the situation, it's important to say, you know what? This situation is something that we don't like and we want to do something about it.
Yeah.
Right? It's not, we're not okay with this. We can't change it right now. We have a long priority stack. It's broken. We know it. We have to consciously choose to fix something else, and we get that. But let's not just keep silently accepting these absurd norms, because that's how they stay in place.
Well said. You get the final word. Check out Charlie's books. Thank you, everybody, for the ruckus you make. This has been a super fun media tour. Thanks for so much of your support on my book, which is out a week ago. But make sure you go read Charlie's books. They're really special. Charlie, I can't wait to see you in person. Thanks, everybody.
Same.
We'll see you soon. Go make a ruckus.